Breathe fully and easily. And I can't emphasize this portion enough. Maybe I can. I never feel like I do. Where your spine stacks in a way where you feel relatively weightless. Eyes can close if that feels comfortable for you. Breath itself slows down a bit. One really important component, physical component to finding that weightlessness, that spinal column stack, is that the chin isn't dropping. So that maybe even the slightest touch of elevation is happening with the chin, like 3 to 5 degrees max. But if the chin drops at all, if we go into flexion at all with the cervical spine, we do put pressure on that posterior chain, which adds sensation. And we'll give ourselves about 60 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, if the eyes are closed, they can blink open. Let's take our palms and just make sure they're up here. And then we're going to take the chin up towards the ceiling and just do some big full arcs with the chin. Really thinking about allowing for full range of motion. Remembering that you can stop and explore areas of interest. One more time in each direction, or until you feel a balance point. And then let's come back to neutral. We'll bring the hands together so that we can interlace. So we're just going to push the palms away from us. So elbows can stay bent if the shoulders aren't receptive to this. We can get into that full extension. Think about squeezing the elbows towards one another so that we're playing with this soft tissue in the finger mounds a little bit. an area that, and if the elbows are bent, you can still kind of push those hands out, right? So just trying to find some hand work here. And then we'll relax that. Palms stay up once again. We'll drop the chin towards the sternum and we'll do some more arc work with the neck. So moving through full range of motion. A lot of different patterns that you can move and articulate your neck with, right? Just choose. You can kind of wag the chin, or you could use the top of the head as the emphasis point, and that will give you very different movement capacity. Do what feels best. Explore what you're drawn towards, maybe explore what you're not drawn towards, and just move in a way where you're getting the maximum benefit. Maybe one more time in each direction. And we'll come back to neutral, bring our head to neutral, and let's take our hands and just lift them so that they're like a 90-degree bend at the elbows. And think about pulling the palms towards the front of the room. Kind of feels like we're going to cast a magic spell here. But unfortunately, I don't know any. Muggle. And then we will release those hands, make a fist, and let's just do some wrist circles. That hand retraction kind of brings some fatigue into the forearm musculature, so that now as we move here, hopefully we can feel that forearm musculature just a little bit more in depth. And then if it feels appropriate, we can reverse the direction as well. Little musculature that we don't often kind of put through this type of rigorous repetition. So you may find fatigue relatively quickly. And then when it feels appropriate, let's just release. Just feel how different the arms feel. And we'll work our way to hands and knees tabletop. So hands and knees tabletop here with a little bit of extra awareness. And from that little bit of extra awareness, let's push down into the finger mounds and just lift the heels of the hands. Again, kind of playing with this forearm musculature. Here we have the bone stack, so maybe better. That bone stack allows for a little bit less of the musculature. So you can kind of play with this as how far do you want to take your torso forward to put more pressure on that finger musculature. And then release the hands, and as the hands touch, the heels of the hands touch down, slide back into child's pose. Your choice, and if you want to relax the elbows or you want to stay active here, kind of your own determination as to what depth will give you the best benefit. And we'll give ourselves just about 40 more seconds settled into this child's pose. When it feels appropriate, we'll pull ourselves forward, hands and knees tabletop. Opportunity to roll back into one down dog. Does not need to happen, but if that would feel good for you, this will be as active as we're getting today. We're not going to make our way to our feet. So just a little exploration. And then when it feels right, we'll come down to hands and knees tabletop and extend our legs straight out in front of us for staff. From staff, let's bend our knees enough so that we can interlace our fingers with our toes. This is a pretty big spacing of the toes. And so if that feels like it's too much, the further you are towards the end of the toes, towards the toenail, will be the least amount of spacing. But we'll try to get just a little bit of spacing here. And we'll just hold this for another 15 seconds. Not a super long time, but a little attention to these guys is a nice thing to offer. And then when it feels appropriate, you can release, extend the legs out in front of you and just find a seated forward fold. Traditional seat, traditional fold, the shape of the spine completely up to you, what feels best and most productive. We'll give ourselves about 40 more seconds here in this first little seated forward fold. And when it feels appropriate, let's walk ourselves up in the seat. Keep that right leg extended. And let's bend our left knee so that we can craft kind of a figure 4-esque shape. And then we'll take the right hand to the left toes and just kind of interacting with those toes, try to push those back a little bit. I don't know how to show that, but just try to give that similar energy that we gave to our hands to start class. And then we'll release that and just work into an ankle roll. Exploring the full ankle capacity. And then let's reverse that direction. And when it feels appropriate, we'll release the left leg, mirrors the right, and do the same thing to side 2. Take that figure 4 shape, use the left hand to help push those toes back first. And get that extension into the toe joints. And then eventually releasing and starting an ankle roll. Just trying to explore all of the possible ranges of the ankle. And when you feel appropriate, we can reverse the direction. And then when you feel complete, we'll extend both legs down the mat. And once again, take ourselves into forward fold. Just kind of a unique opportunity, right? So, yeah, we did one forward fold before, but we mostly just played with our foot and ankle capacity in the lower half of the body anyway. Did it improve? Did it impact? Did it change at all your forward fold? And to keep this short, we're just going to give ourselves maybe another breath here. When it feels appropriate, we'll walk ourselves up into staff. Let the hands come behind you, and fingers really can face any direction that feels best. We're going to look to get some extension into the spine. So inhaling and drawing that sternum forward, lifting the chin, just trying to counteract our forward fold a little bit. And then we'll relax back to neutral, and we're going to engage our props. So here I am thinking about both blankets or towels formed into block-like shapes. The goal here is going to be to provide some height for a supported forward fold. And so it's theoretically possible we may want some more props. We may want to scavenge some stuff together. But just looking for a spot where we can get into a fold, where we can rest our forehead. And so remember, you can continue to stack, you can continue to fold the blankets to give more height. And then you can also scrounge around and see what you can find if it feels necessary to make that a little bit higher. So just a nice supported forward fold where we can relax, trying to deactivate as much as is possible here. So there's this little village where these two very wealthy twins have been raised. They're almost like royalty in the amount of access and opportunity they have just due to their family's wealth. And everything that they are involved in is the very best. And that is certainly true about their education. They've had the best private tutors. They've had the best of every possible opportunity, certainly for the time. And yet these two twins took very different approaches to their education. The brother was very invested in the schooling, very much an achiever in his education. And his twin sister, essentially the opposite. Whenever she was being taught something, he could hardly wait to be anywhere else but that lesson. We have about 60 more seconds here. And last big inhale. Full release into your exhale. And we'll walk our spine up to vertical. Let's take our blankets or towels and get them into a towel length, roughly towel length, and then we're going to roll those. Both of them in the same fashion. Towel length and then rolls. And so a little bit of a new shape here. First towel or blanket is going to come down behind us. That's going to run the direction of the spine, and it is going to support the spine. The second roll is going to be a neck adjustment. And so that's running across the first. So we're making a T with that. And obviously this piece is going to be adjusted just based upon the geometry of our body. So feet, tailbone on the ground. We lower our spine onto our first blanket roll. The second blanket roll is adjusted so that it cradles the neck, so that it elevates the chin. It doesn't compress the chin. And then we just release here. And this is a really good shape. And we just breathe here. So is this brother of the twins, twin brother, is offered lessons in school. He dives in completely and fully. Every subject that's taught, he is invested in, but he is particularly invested in the tales of foreign lands. His twin sister, on the other hand, is particularly uninterested in everything. Control your duration of breath so that it is as long as is possible without causing stress. Remember that your legs can be positioned in many different ways, right? Knees can be bent, bottoms of the feet can be together, legs can be extended. The back bend here is in the lumbar, and the leg extended position will be maximizing that low back bend. It depends a little bit on your own geometry, but bottoms of the feet or knees bent both offer their own version of softness there, of softening the edges of this shape. And we'll give ourselves about 60 more seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, we're just gonna roll off our props one side or the other, whatever side feels most appropriate. We'll pull those blanket rolls out from underneath us. And let's just head onto our back so that we can kind of feel what we've done. You can add some knee movement if that feels advantageous or beneficial. I always feel like my body's just falling into a hole after we come off of those elevations. And so feel into how neutrality feels now. And then eventually we're going to grab our blanket roll, a single blanket roll, just tuck that over the top of the ankles, wrap it around, and let the bottoms of the feet come together. One of my absolute favorite recharge shapes. We'll find our way back to the breath that is as long as is possible without causing duress or stress. The end of the school year, these two twins are, and the rest of their classmates are notified that this mystic is coming to town. And the two twins, because of their affluence, are offered a private audience before this mystic is going to make the presentation to the rest of the school. She asks them some kind of pleasantry questions. And she says, I have a very specific question I'd like to ask you both. And I have a very powerful reward that I'm going to offer the best answer. She says, there's these blue mountains off in the horizon. And they both kind of acknowledge, yeah, those blue mountains are in the horizon. She says, I have been drawn to these blue mountains for my entire existence. I didn't know they were there, but I've been seeing these blue mountains in my dreams. She says, the question I want to ask you both is, what is on the other side of these blue mountains? And the twin brother starts to respond, and she says, hold on. Let me explain the terms of our deal. Tomorrow, I'm going to meet with you both, and I want you both to give me the answer. your best answer of what is on the other side of these blue mountains. And to whichever one of you gives me the best answer, I will give you a prize. And then she goes off and she meets with the rest of the school and does her little mystic presentation. Slowly finding your way into ease here. Now we're going to do something a little bit different. So the left knee is going to come up to face the ceiling. The right knee is going to stay as is. Then you're going to take your left foot to the outside edge of the blanket so that it's no longer supported by the blanket when you bring the bottoms of the feet together. Then let your knees fall out wide once again. Now you still have some support possible from the tail end of that blanket. You can choose to use that or not. So you can push that in and let that left leg fall out much further, or you can use kind of a half support at the thigh and let the asymmetry be a little bit less. We're going to end up balancing this out, right? So we're going to do the other side. So you don't need to worry about the asymmetry as getting out of line. You just need to worry about what is providing me the best position to maximize my ability to relax here. The reason that we're offering this shape asymmetrically is because it allows more openness. And if you think of the system here as a rubber band, and you change the point of pressure on the rubber band, you'll be able to expand the rubber band at different angles in different directions at different lengths, right? And so if you were to put a pinch point in a rubber band and you were to move that pinch point further to the right, you'd have more slack to expand to the left. If you were to move that pinch point to the left, you'd have more slack to expand that rubber band to the right. So we're just shifting the pinch point, the symmetry of the rubber band, so that we can be a little bit more expansive individually. And then when we put the collective pieces together, hopefully we've crafted some more room. Last 40 seconds here on this first side. And when it feels appropriate, that left knee is coming back to neutral. We'll bring that back to the inner edge of our blanket. Let the left knee fall out wide, and then right knee comes up, right ankle to the outer edge, bottoms of the feet come back together, and then we fall open. We choose what we do with that tail end of the blanket to maximize our capacity for expansion. And then we settle back in. Slowing your rate of respiration to its maximum duration without causing any duress. And we have about 50 more seconds here on this second side. And when it feels appropriate, we'll just bring the knees back towards neutral. We can pull that blanket out Oh, and feel that abductor line, that medial line, maybe a little bit of movement here for that. That could be an expansion and contraction of the knee space, and then we'll start some dynamic lateral sway. The hips here are kind of we went secretly after the hips, right? Obviously, we had that big medial line opening, but you may feel a lot more intensity than you were expecting as you start these lateral sways. Came from just the sequencing of which we approach things today, even though we did things that were, familiar, but with new twists. Maybe one more time in each direction. Or until you feel good is probably a better timeline. And then with the knees back to neutral, pointing towards the ceiling, let's pull the thighs in towards the rib cage and give yourself a nice little squeeze. And then we'll release the knees back down and let them fall to one side or the other, whatever side feels most appropriate. So the twins go home that night, and they both have an incredibly difficult time falling asleep for vastly different reasons. The twin sister is up all night because she knows that she knows absolutely nothing about what's on the other side of the Blue Mountains. If she was taught this in school, she has no idea. She certainly didn't pay attention. And so she's up all night dreading the response she's going to be forced to give to this mystic. Her brother, on the other hand, has the opposite dilemma. He's been taught, so is she, but he paid attention about all kinds of stories about what's on the other side of the Blue Mountains. He's been taught that this is a place where there are rivers of liquid gold, diamonds that grow in trees, and the most incredible fruit delicacies that could ever be dreamt up. Tales of dragons and gods. And so he's up all night thinking about how he's going to formulate all of this information he's been taught about this land into a clear and concise answer that he can give to this mystic. Just 30 more seconds here on this first side. When it feels appropriate, we'll bring our knees back to neutral. And then we'll let the knees fall over to that second side. Twist conclusion, side 2. Really just settling in to the ideal shape for the maximum benefit to balance out what we've done. And last about 60 seconds here on this second side. When it feels appropriate, bring the knees back to neutral, asking yourself if there is anything you can offer yourself that would be helpful prior to Shavasana. And if there is, offering that to yourself now. If you have everything you need, let's just drift into a shape where we can fully and deeply appreciate some stillness. And so this twin brother and twin sister spend each of their nights tossing and turning, more or less dreading the response they're going to give for one reason or another. So the next day, these two twins meet with the mystic, and she asks them about the Blue Mountains. She looks at the twin sister first. She says, "Tell me your best answer." And with a great deal of shame, she looks back at this mystic and she says, "I've never been to the other side of the Blue Mountains, and I have no idea what could possibly be there." Before she even finishes, her brother jumps in and he starts reciting all of these tales, all of these things he's been taught about the other side of the Blue Mountains. Rivers of liquid gold and diamonds on trees and these fantastic fruits and dragons and gods. He looks at this young boy with a huge smile on her face. She says, "Clearly you've been paying attention to what they've taught you. We'll start to bring some movement into our fingers and our toes." She reaches into her bag and she pulls out this glowing crystal ball. Movement into your wrists and your ankles. Moving into your elbows and your knees. She takes the crystal ball and she hands it to the sister. And she says, "Thank you. The best answer you could have given me." Moving into your shoulders and hips, neck and head, jaw, eyes, tongue. Eventually, the entirety of the body will move. And through that movement, we'll transition back into a seated shape. As we settle into our new version of seat, let your spine get tall, let your breath get fluid, and your eyes close. And with your next inhale, we'll bring our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you embrace the power of "I don't know"? Because when "I don't know" is destroyed, so is all possibility of knowing. And see how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this morning's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy, happy Sunday, guys. Appreciate the heck out of you being here. I'll be back tomorrow night if you want to move. If you're not able to make it, I'll see you next week for another recharge. Love the heck out of you. Mwah.